a couple administrative things. Homework, assignment due tomorrow night at midnight. Okay. And I've already got 15 turned in. So you can type it into Canvas. You can type it on in Word and upload it, or you can do it in handwritten and take a picture of it and upload it. Okay, there's 3 ways you can turn that in. I don't really want to take in papers, if that's okay. Next thing is I am going to be posting another assignment. This will be an optional assignment. It's called The Second Treatise on Civil Government by John Locke. Now, the actual text of this thing is about 30 pages. This is an excerpt, just a small excerpt with 3 questions on it. Okay, so it's a chance to get into a little bit deeper of what we're going to talk about today when it comes to social contract theories. And it's just an optional assignment. You guys can do it if you want. If you don't do it, it doesn't hurt your grade. It can help your grade. I'll give you 3 points each for giving me some good answers on this, okay? So I'll post that later today, and I'll make that due Friday night or something like that, okay? I'll give you a couple of days to work on it, okay? Morning, Drake. What'd you? Oreos. Oh, nice. Okay. So, Drake, I was just telling everybody, homework assignment due tomorrow night at midnight. It's on Canvas, and then I'm going to post another optional assignment next for later in the week. Okay. All right. So last time we met, we talked about the 4 origins of government. Okay, and we started with the force theory, Genghis Khan, and all that, and then the evolutionary theory, and then the divine right theory. And as I was talking about before, guys, these philosophers reject the idea of divine right of kings to rule over people. Okay, and so this social contract theory is an agreement. That's what a social contract is. It's like when you and I make an agreement to do something. Okay, and in this case, it's about you and I making an agreement to form a government together. Okay, in order to do that, you have to go back into a state of nature. Okay, state of nature, I want you to think of like no government, chaos, law of the jungle. So we go into a state of nature. Now, can nature be brutal? You guys ever watch like Discovery Channel and, you know, wildlife and so forth? Like, okay, that's a state of nature. Does man left to their own devices, do we act like animals sometimes? You guys have seen The Purge. You know what I'm saying? That's going into a state of nature. Okay, so you temporarily go into a state of nature to form a new social contract. Okay, and that agreement amongst men to form a new government is a different idea. Okay, now Hobbes over here, these men are both English, believe that left in a state of nature, people's lives would be nasty, brutish, and short if there was no law. You know what I mean? If there was no government. All right. So he said that people need government to control their combative, instructive ways. Now, he has a very pessimistic view of mankind. Hobbes does. Okay. And so the best way to do this, he felt, was an absolute monarch. Okay, not necessarily claiming divine right, but a king or a queen or a dictator of some sort to control us. Does that make sense? So Hobbes, although he's kind of committing treason because he doesn't really buy into this, that God chose this king to rule, he still thinks we need strong government to control us. Okay, and he may be onto something. Okay, because we can be destructive and combative. Okay, so under this contract, we give up some of our individual sovereignty, the right to do whatever we want. Okay, we give up the right to harm each other. Okay, or put each other in danger. Okay, so that we can live in a state that provides peace and order. Okay. Now he does advocate for a strong government that can control us, all right? Like a dictator, absolute monarch, okay? But then Locke comes around, okay? And Locke writes the second treatise on civil government, okay? And he has a little different view on this. Yes, he agrees definitely in this social contract theory, okay? But he feels like it's the government's role to secure our rights, our natural rights. Now, again, in the state of nature, what Locke is saying is that people are born with natural rights, that every human being has natural rights. And these rights must be protected. When you're living under an absolute ruler, under a dictator, who decides what rights you have? The dictator. Okay? Locke is arguing differently. He's saying that we have certain rights that we are born with, and when we form a social contract, the government's obligation is to secure these rights. Now, he talks about these rights, and he calls them life, liberty, and what? That's what Thomas Jefferson said. John Locke said, right? Have you heard this before? Life, liberty, and property. You might have heard this in another class somewhere along the line. Okay? So Locke says life, liberty, and property, okay, that all humans have. All humans have these rights. And then it's the role of government to secure these rights. Now, these are pretty broad statements. Okay? Life, liberty, and property, which is okay. It's all right if that is broad. Because this secures more freedom for mankind. He said that governments that do not secure these rights should be overthrown, altered, abolished, overthrown. And then this next line here, a limited government that relies entirely on the consent of the governed. Who are the governed? The people are the governed. So government rules because we allow them to rule. That's what Locke says. Does this make sense, David? We allow government to rule over us. That's where they get their legitimacy, from the people, not God. So this rejects the divine right. We decide who our government is. When a king decides what the rules are, we have no say either in our rights, okay, our natural rights to life. So the king can convict us of whatever he wants to convict us of and take our life. He decides what freedoms we have, what liberty we have, okay? And the king can take your property whenever he wants, whether it be through taxes or land confiscation or what have you. And this is what kings were known to do over the centuries. Now, when Locke is writing this, guys, he's writing this in 1680. Okay, 1680. He doesn't publish this for 10 years after he wrote it because he's afraid to publish it. Because he is living under a king that claims divine right. Okay, so he's scared for his life to publish this. You understand? He's committing treason. Okay, now, a few years ago, many years ago, about 20 years ago, I told you guys I wasn't Catholic, didn't I? Did I tell you guys that? I did. Okay. So I was. My wife's a cradle Methodist. Okay, so she went to Methodist church her whole life. And so when we got married, we started going to Methodist church here in town, and we went. We had like a 9 o'clock. We'd have a Bible study with some other couples and singles, and we'd take one book of the Bible, study it for a month or so, month of Sundays, and then move on to another book. And like we've been basically through the Bible after a couple of years. And they said, well, let's try something different. And they said, well, why don't we look at like the faith of the founding fathers? Like the impact of religion on our system of government. Okay. Of course, they all looked at me, the government teacher, and said, why don't you find a book, Charlie? And so I did. I found this book called Christianity and the Constitution, the Faith of the Founding Fathers. Okay. Now, one thing a lot of people need to understand about the Founding Fathers, almost all of them believed in God. Okay. Not all of them were Christians, but some were deists. You guys know what a deist is? Someone believes in a higher power, a God of some sort, but maybe not specifically in the Trinity, okay, in Christianity. Okay. But most of them, over 90% of them were Christians, okay? The deists, a lot of people claim Benjamin Franklin, maybe Thomas Jefferson. However, these guys, when you look at Franklin, he was a religious man. He really believed in God, okay? And he believed that God could help us as a new nation and that we needed to ask him for help. Franklin thought that. George Washington was very religious. And if you look at these guys and what they were reading when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, when they wrote the Constitution, what were they reading? You guys know when you write a paper, you cite sources that you use, yes? The founders did the same thing. Okay, so you can go back and look at what sources they used for their writings, okay, and what they were reading, okay? And so the author of this book goes through and he literally charts this out as far as what books or authors that they were reading, if I can find the pages, okay, there it is. Okay, so if you look at citations by decade, okay, the Bible in the 1770s, which is when they wrote the Declaration, the Bible was the most cited book. Others were Enlightenment, common law, classical authors, and so forth. Most cited thinkers by decade. Okay, in the 1770s, in the 1760s, leading up to the American Revolution, John Locke was the #1 most cited author, okay, or philosopher, all right, by the founders, okay. Others you will find Montesquieu. Some do reference Hobbes, okay, but not as many. I don't know if you guys have heard of Blackstone. Blackstone, if anybody ever wants to study law, you're going to go to law school. Blackstone's basically the author of English common law. And so in the 1780s, when we write the new Constitution, Blackstone is the most studied or cited author, okay, because they're writing the new law, the new Constitution, okay. So it's just kind of interesting. Now, Locke gets these ideas, okay, because he believes in God. Locke is a Christian, okay, and he gets this idea of property, that we all are born with the right to have property, a natural right. He gets this from the Bible. And if you go to Genesis, right, and you guys know all these stories, but the story of Adam, right? Adam was given domain, okay, over the earth, okay, and then God destroyed the earth and gave domain over the land to who? After he destroyed it? Noah, okay, and this is where he gets these ideas, okay. He says if you work, you toil, you grow food on land, you have the right to that property, okay? And this idea of life and liberty is freedom, okay? And life is to be able to live without fear of your life being taken from you, to pursue your life the way you want to, okay? And so these natural rights, guys, come from God. Do you understand? This is where this comes from. This comes from a religious perspective. This is important, guys, because in this country right now, we are losing God. Okay, are you familiar? I know you guys are familiar with objective truth. Okay, there is right and there is wrong. There is good, there is evil. Yes? Okay. Now, if you don't believe in God, because as a Protestant, I mean, if you asked me, and you guys might feel the same way, what is truth? Now, if you look that up in a dictionary, truth, you're going to get that, that there's evidence of and so forth, right? That's something we can see and there's evidence of. That's true, okay? But to a Christian, to me, truth is God. God is truth. God's word is truth, okay? So if Locke is claiming that these rights come from, these are natural rights given to us by God, can man take them away? Man can't take them away. So guys, if we have politicians in Washington, D.C. that don't believe in God, do they think they can take away your rights? Because it's not objective, it's subjective. Man decides what is true. You guys know this moral relativism stuff, right? Where, hey, if it feels good to me, I can make a rationale that this is okay. This behavior is okay. That's subjective. Okay? These rights are not subjective. Okay? And so what I'm going to show you next on the next slide is a couple of excerpts from, these are the first two paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence. Okay? Written by Thomas Jefferson. It was signed by the founders on July 4th, 1776. These men were committing treason against the King of England when they attached their name to it. Okay? Now, Jefferson, when he wrote this, there was a committee of 5 men that were to write this. Now, this is the Second Continental Congress. They're meeting in Philadelphia. Okay? The war has already started. The war started in 1775, April 19th, Lexington and Concord. Okay? And George Washington has formed an army. And we are fighting against the most powerful nation in the world. And these men are down in Philadelphia. And they know if British troops make it down to Philadelphia, they put their name on this, they're all going to be hanged for treason. They chose Jefferson because Jefferson's very good with words. Okay, he's written, and he's only 33 years old at this point. Okay, he's helped write the Virginia Constitution. He's talked about the rights of man, written about that before. And so John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, a guy named Livingston, Sherman, and Ben Franklin are the 5 men on the committee to write the Declaration. And they say, Tom, you write it. And then they critiqued it and changed it. And when they put it in front of all those men in the Second Continental Congress, they changed it even more. So the original is different than what they signed. Okay, but Jefferson wrote these words. Okay, so when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands, that's our relationship with Britain, which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to separation. So basically, this introductory paragraph is saying, hey, Brit, we are explaining to you why we are separating from you, why we are declaring our independence. Okay? Then here come the reasons. All right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator, by God, with certain unalienable, he didn't say natural, unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That's your social contract. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. They get their power from us, the people. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, they do not secure your rights. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, Jefferson did not plagiarize from Locke, okay, but he certainly borrowed from Locke. Wouldn't you say, just based on what you wrote in the notes on the last slide? Okay, I'm going to ask you to write about this on the text. Okay, to explain the impact of Locke on Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence. Okay, it's all right there on those 2 slides, everything you need. Okay, there'll be a long answer on that. Okay, so you'll write me a nice long paragraph on that. All right, but guys, this is really something that some people believe, that our rights come from the Constitution. The Constitution was written by man. When we look at the First Amendment, right? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to peacefully assemble, to petition your government, 5 freedoms, okay, in the First Amendment. Right to bear arms in the 2nd, okay? No quartering of soldiers in the 3rd. In the 4th, no illegal search and seizure. In the 5th, you have the right to an attorney. You have due process of law. The government can't mistreat you arbitrarily. There has to be a process when they arrest you and when they try you. And 6, trial by jury. Right to a speedy trial. 7, 8, no cruel and unusual punishment on us, or no unreasonable fines or bail. Okay, those are the rights that man wrote. Okay, and they're protected in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay, but these natural rights of life, liberty, and property, or pursuit of happiness, guys, are not from man. They are from God. And if our men violate this Constitution and take away our rights to life, liberty, and property, guess what we can do? We can use the Second Amendment to alter or abolish that government or overthrow it. It's in our founding document that we have the right to do that. in fact, the obligation to do that if government doesn't secure our natural rights. Do you understand? That's why they put the Second Amendment in there. Because you're not going to defeat the British if you don't have muskets. You're not going to defeat the government if you don't have guns. If you don't have arms. Now, if you look back at history, have there ever been any oppressive government that took away people's rights, their life, liberty, and property? Has that ever happened in human history? Yeah, like throughout human history, that's happened. Do you think it'll ever happen here? Well, hopefully not. Okay, we can alter our government every time we go vote. We have a chance to alter our government. Yes? I'm not advocating for revolution here. What I'm saying is we have a right to it. You understand? An obligation to it. Now, I just told you that these rights come from God. Now, there are millions of high school students all across this country today in public schools right now. Can their teacher tell them that these rights come from God? They can't. My buddy Mr. O'Connor over here at Northwest, who teaches government, cannot teach his students that these rights are fundamentally given to us through objective truth from God. So, guys, we're up against the wall a little bit already because most of our people are educated not to know that. Most of our people are educated without being taught this. What's right or wrong? And to me, that's a little frightening. Okay, so just hopefully you'll remember that. You know what I mean? That these rights come from God, not from man. All right? And so when they wrote the Constitution, they wanted to make sure it was in writing. And we'll talk more about that as well as we move forward through this process. Okay? I have a little quote up here from Thomas Jefferson. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Tyrants are the ones that take away your rights. Patriots are the ones that fight for them. And from time to time, tyrants need to be reminded that we reserve the power to resist tyranny. And sometimes blood will be shed over that. Okay? Jefferson was famous for saying these things, like, a little bit of blood from time to time. It's not a bad thing. Government needs to be reminded. Okay? Again, not advocating for revolution. Okay? All right, so changing course here a little bit, all right? So we're going to get into some different forms of government, some different roles of government in the notes here the next couple of days, okay? This brings us to an end of our political philosophy discussion, all right? And, crap, I hit that button. Okay. So we're going to look at 5 functions of government, okay? These are pretty common sense. I'll kind of break them down a little bit for you guys. Okay. Yeah, this is an important function of government, maintaining order. Okay, so enforcing laws, safety and security. So whether it be a police officer on their beat, a soldier on a tour of duty, maintaining order when it comes to unfair business practices, protecting national industries, and so forth. Did any guys like pay attention to this thing that was going on with GameStop? We talked about the movie The Big Short last week, which was these people that were buying short, betting against the banks, right? And so I guess word got out that you can bet against the stock market. You can bet against different companies that they're going to do bad, okay? And you can make money off of that, which is kind of strange to me. And I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. Is it legal? Yeah, I guess it is legal to sell short, okay? Well, word got out that some of these big investors were going to start selling short, saying GameStop their stock's going to start dropping. I've never been on Reddit. Is that like an app? Can you get on? Is that an app? It's just like a message board or what? Is it like Twitter? Or? It's just like, I don't know how it works. It's been on Reddit. So is it like, how does it work?
So it's basically all these different communities.
Uh-huh.
You can search up whatever community you want, pretty much.
Okay.
And in these little communities, you can post what you want, talking about it.
Uh-huh.
And then people can comment on.
So it's just like, it's a message board. Yeah. Okay. And then now these people said, hey, these people are selling short against GameStop. Let's buy it, right? And so like all these people started buying GameStop. I forget what it started trading at. I don't know, like $30, went up to like $300 a share. And all these people that were selling short, betting against GameStop, they lost a bunch of money. Okay. And so now the government's involved. Okay. And so they're going to try and stop that type of thing from happening. Is that an unfair business practice? I'm always that guy that says, you know what? I like when the little guy, you know, these big hedge fund managers and stuff that are making money off of selling, you know, betting against these companies. I don't know. I guess that's a thing, but for the people to kind of say, hey, let's support this company. I'm like, all right with that. You know, I know these big rich people lost some money, not really feeling sorry for them. I don't know, that's how I feel about it. Okay. Anyhow, discrimination in the workplace is something the government can do, help maintain order, okay? Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Okay, providing services. Now, this is one of the most debatable ones on here. Like, okay, yes, government provides services. In the Constitution over here, it says the government shall build post offices. And the Constitution says build post offices and postal roads. So that the mail can get through, they can build roads. That's providing a service, right? And if you fell on the side of, hey, Medicare for all, that would be the government providing health care for everybody. That'd be providing a service. And that's not in the Constitution, but some people say, well, that's something they can do because some people can't easily do themselves. You know, the people do build roads. The government just hires them to do it. Right? So, Let's debate this. Okay? Now, it might make sense to have an outside observer come in and inspect a meatpacking plant or inspect a restaurant to make sure that the restaurant is staying up with codes when it comes to cleanliness. You know, you don't really want cockroaches when you go visit a restaurant, cockroaches in the kitchen, or rats, or rat feces around the food, right? So you have inspectors from the government to go in and inspect these places. All right, and they publish that in the newspaper. If you've ever seen that, you guys know what a newspaper is? Before too long, we won't. I still pay for the dang Wichita Eagle, and I don't know why, but it's all online. I guess it's kind of a romantic thing to, drink a cup of coffee in the morning and read the newspaper. But anyhow, they publish that stuff, okay? But when it comes to roads, all right, so like we talked about, so if we need to repair a road or rebuild a bridge, the government will hire somebody, give them a contract to do it, right? So private companies build roads. Government doesn't build roads. Government pays for roads based on the taxes that we pay, and they use that money to build the roads. If you ever take the turnpike, right, you pay to use the turnpike. They use that money to pay the employees that work for the Turnpike Authority and to repair the roads. Yes? And they gotta have a lot of money coming in. Okay. But anyhow, do we need government to do that? To build roads? Could we do it ourselves? Now we have $27 trillion in debt right now. This country. So I have an idea. Okay? We're going to offer up to the American people the ability to buy roads from the government. So you're going to buy Central, right out here in front of school, okay, from 119th to West Street, okay, and you're going to pay the government $30 million for that road, okay? Now, every time somebody uses that road, their car's going to have a little barcode on it, and it's going to scan your car, and every time you get on Central, between those two areas, you're going to pay me, I just bought this for $30 million. You're going to pay me 2 cents every time you get on that road. Okay? And you scan it, and you have an account, it just charges you at the end of the month. Every time you use it. Okay? Now I use Central 10 times a week at a minimum. All right? So how much is that a week? 2 cents a time. It's 20 cents. That's what I pay for. Okay? Now, one thing we can do is cut taxes a little bit because we're not using that. And it's the job of me to maintain that road from 119th to West. Okay? One of the things I want to do is attract businesses to my road. Because the more businesses I have to my road, the more traffic I get, the more money I make. And I want to make my road nice because if I have potholes all over my road, all right, people are going to use Maple. And the guy that owns Maple is going to get rich. And if we sold these roads to people all over the country, we could help pay down the national debt with that. That money could only be used for the national debt, nothing else. The sale of the road. Residential areas would be owned by the neighborhood. Okay, so you don't have to pay a fee in the neighborhood. Okay. But if you got a pothole in your neighborhood needs to call a company to come fix your pothole. And the homeowners need to pay for it. This is called privatizing the roads. You guys in on that? You like that idea? No? Doable? Okay. Thoughts? Look, you only pay for the roads if you use the roads. If you don't drive, you don't pay for the roads. Emergency vehicles, they don't have to pay, right? Okay. You're going to have to pay for the national debt, not me. Your kids, your grandkids, my grandkids, my kids. Yeah. All right. Just keep rolling along. All right. We got this, guys. I've tried every conceivable color here to make this work, to make it able to read. Okay.
I don't just highlight it.
Like, highlight it for you.
Well, like, there's like one of the text options is like
Oh,
highlight.
yeah. It's a thought. Oops. This one?
Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh. Do it. It's not letting me do it. Oh, because I don't have it. Crap. Is that any better?
I mean, I can somewhat read it.
There we go. Okay, resulting conflict, right? That's easy, right? Now, usually it's the court system that does that, but we also, obviously we have conflicts within Congress. We have compromise, promoting values. Okay? Values are basic principles by which people live and act. Okay? So government can, I think I talked about this before, you can't legislate morality. You can't say, hey, you have to live this way. It's a crime to have adultery is a crime, okay, and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to live in that society. You guys have read the Scarlet Letter, right? Okay, so, but it can promote certain values, okay? We want to promote equality of opportunity, individual rights, and education. That's things the government can promote, passes laws and set policies to reinforce these values. And then this one, ensure national security. Whether it be cyber security from Romanian hackers or Russian hackers, borders, okay, ports of entry, defense systems, that sort of thing. So these are five basic functions of government. Okay. And these are the things we debate about all the time. You know what I mean? These are the issues that we argue about, that we debate, that we pass laws about. A lot of those have to do with the 24 issues that I talked about with, you know, in the political spectrum. Okay. All right. So next session tomorrow, I'm going to be getting into different forms of government. So make sure you watch the video and you guys can take notes. As we go through those, we'll be talking about, you know, dictatorships and monarchies and different, you know, Republican governments. We'll be talking about democracy and so forth. Okay. That's the plan. See you tomorrow, Natalie.